Welcome to a video from theslice.com. In this video we're going to be looking back at the history of one of Korg's classic synthesizers, the Korg Wavestation. This was released in 1990 and is a unique digital synth that combines PCM samples, vector synthesis and wave sequencing. Its origins come from the Sequential ProphetVS. When Sequential went bust in 1989, Yamaha purchased Dave Smith's company, and Korg was part owned by Yamaha at that point, and Dave Smith, the founder of Sequential, and much of the team moved to Korg where they worked on the Wavestation. At the time when this came out, music workstations were popular like the M1 and the D20, but this was slightly different. This is a pure synth. There's no multi-track sequencer in there, there wasn't a specific drum machine or anything like that. It's a pure synth, digital synth that can produce rich pad sounds and rhythmic sequences. It's made up of two types of synthesis, wave sequencing and vector synthesis. So in this video I'm going to be looking at what the Wavestation is, what it can do, and the different versions of the Wavestation that released over time, and of course looking at the modern equivalents, the virtual the VST Wavestation, part of the Korg Collection, has been for some time, which is what I'll be using to demonstrate the sounds here, and of course talking about the WaveState, which is kind of the spiritual successor to the Wavestation as well, and mention a few other synths as we go along. So in previous videos I've actually looked at physical hardware, like I've looked at the Yamaha TX7 and the Korg Radius and the Korg Karma. This one I'm using the virtual version, and part of it is because the Wavestation was expensive at the time. It was sort of £1,500, almost $2,000, and so I'd even got one in the early 90s. And the other reason is the virtual version is actually really good, and in some ways it has a lot of features that the real one doesn't, in terms of editing and things like that. So yes, I'd love to get my hands on one of the old ones. I still check eBay and Reverb every now and again, but this is a great substitute and, like I said, part of the Korg Collection. So let's first demonstrate some of the sounds, then we'll look at some of the different ways it produces those sounds and why it's quite unique. So the one that I was playing in an intro, which is called Midnight Run, demonstrates pretty well wave sequencing and vector synthesis. So here we go with one note. And then it's split this one. And there you can hear the evolving pad, and that's what the Wavestation was famous for, and these sequences. So we're going to be having a look at how we can get into those and how you can actually create those and the synth engine. So, like I said, 1990 this came out, and it had some amazing sounds and lots of famous users as well. So let's dive into one of these patches, this Midnight Run. And you can see here, each performance is made up, or can be made up of 8 patches. Each patch can be made up using a sound, which has got 4 parts, and you can use wave sequencing to switch between multiple waves, so you're not just limited to 4 type of sounds. So this one is a split, as you can see by the key zones there. So first we're going to just concentrate on the upper side, which looks like it's using preset 2, 3 and 6. So what we can do, we can mute the other parts and just go straight to these. So let's go that one. Oh, that's the lower one. So there's the synth string. We go into that, and that's a very simple one, just using the wave synth string. Here's your wave list you can choose from. You can preview them, as you can hear, and there's some reverb. Sorry. So that's fairly straightforward. That's the traditional way of a synth. But what we can do, we can have 2 oscillators, and let's just mute onto this one. and I'm going to choose another sequence on the ones with the stars on are the wave sequence ones, and we'll come back to those ones. But I'm just going to go, say, this organ patch. So you just hear the organ. If I put both layers on, we can hear the two of them. Then what we can do is we can use the vector to switch between them. So you hear the joystick there, just organ, just the air vox. But what I can do is I can say at point, I can introduce different timings on that, creating the vector. So we've got those 5 points. So I can go like across there, and that point I went all the way across there, and at point 4 in the middle. So we should switch in between them, between these layers, these levels. And that's really what gives you this kind of these wave sequencing effects. So I'll show you some of the presets have better examples, but you can have 4 of these oscillators, so you can dive between 4 different ones. So let's choose something different. I'm going to stick to just normal sounds, straightforward sounds, and not use wave sequencing just yet. So now I've created quite a complex pattern. And that's in the basics of vector synthesis. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to a pad that's got an evolving sort of effect, and you'll hear a little bit better how that works. So here you have one. And you can hear it switch through those waveforms. Now this is a good example. This is called vector organ. And you can hear those those different waveforms as you morph through them using the joystick like that. And like I said, you could apply some motion to this as well. So you can hear that vector synthesis on there. This is a good example. You can see the different layers on there. It's got 4 different samples based from this single patch, and it really gives you that lovely effect. And you can use LFO, you can use aftertouch to switch between these different layers. You can use the joystick. You can put them into an effects loop like I did before, but you can get those. You can then use those different effects or different ways of modifying the vectors on there. So you get some really lovely nice pads on there. So you can hear it's beautiful for pads and those evolving sounds like this. So the other side to this is the wave sequencing. And wave sequencing, we can actually switch between different sounds. So let me go back to the famous ski jam, and if I do the left hand with that, so let's just pick on this wave dance. So that's one sound, one patch, and that patch is made up of 2 elements. We've got the Airvox, which is just a small part of it, and the main part is the ski jam. So that's one patch, and that's using one sound from one patch. And don't forget, this one patch can have 4 oscillators, and each performance can have 8 patches. So you can start to see the complexity that you can build up of this now. If we then have a look at the wave sequence of the ski jam, you can see here it's actually cycling through 30 elements. So don't forget, one patch, the 1/4 of one patch can have this effect where you can cycle through all these different waveforms. So a bit like on a Korg Modwave, you can do wave sequencing. This is slightly different. These are samples, so you can hear the samples. There's the drum part, there's the next part, and so on. And you can see them as it goes through those. So, and there's the sequence that it's going through, so the volume of each bit. You can see the timing on this one is slightly longer, and then it sort of fades down. Each element can have a duration, a crossfade, a level, a semitone tuning, and a fine tuning as well. So this wood block is up 12, this tambourine is up 2 semitones. So if I do that again, you can hear it cycling through these single elements one at a time. And you can change that, so it's using that that drum, but I could choose a different thing. Let's try using that sort of digital sound. And you'll hear it eventually comes round to it. There we go. So that's how you get those sequence sounds. And if I wanted this section to go on longer, this is why the VST is a bit easier to produce and edit the sounds than the 2 layers, the 2 line display of the original one. I can extend this out. It's a bit digital for that. Let's go for something a bit softer. I'm gonna go with a bass sound. There we go. So we should get now a long bass, and then the sequence kicks in. And of course I can make it much quicker. And this is not monophonic, I can play multiple notes at a time. So we can go back to our patch. So that's using that one. We could choose another vector patch from a wave sequence patch from there. Okay, this is going to get a bit strange now, so if we combine those two. Well, let's put the audio back on it. Let's listen to both. The reason we can't, so before we can hear this one, we can have a look at the other elements to each wave, to each sample. Before we go to listen to that, we can have a look at the other elements. We've got a pitch control with a pitch envelope as well, so you can actually define the pitch envelope. We've got a filter. The original one had the exciter. The VST has a resonant filter. It doesn't really self-resonate very well, so I tend to leave the default ones on there, the exciter one, but you can got the same idea with the filter envelope, a cutoff and a envelope, filter envelope, so you can reduce the cutoff and have more effect of the envelope and so on. We've got an amp, which is a little bit more flexible than your typical ADSR. You've got these extra sort of steps you can put in there. So if I drag that out, you might be able to hear that drum sound a bit longer now. We can hit the padding, and we've got there's one of our envelopes. So we've got an additional envelope we've got there, and we've got 2 LFOs as well. So all that can affect these wave sequences or the normal sounds. Here's the wave sequence of the drum kit. So you can see how that's made up. And then in terms of effects, we've got 2 insert effects. You can mix those together. So you've got a list. Now, I have to remember the VST version has more effects than the original one did as well. So there's a couple more effects you can choose from on this. So those are the effects that you can choose from, but I'm pretty sure. So those are the effects that you can choose from. There's a lot more on the VST than there were included in the original one. Right, so that's how it's made up. You can see it's incredibly complex, and you get some really amazing sounds on it. If we go through some of the motion patches, I can play you some of them, but there is some great splits. So this one called Tangerine D, Tangerine Dream. This one called Heaven's Gate. A good example of what you can do with it. So here's a nice rhythmic one. So this is a nice split between rhythmic and melodic on the right hand side. And then, here you can hear it cycling through the waveforms. So it's great for those kind of effects. On the VST version, you've got this nice browser that I'm using here. That wasn't available on the original one. You could just go through the presets, and I'll talk about some of the extra things that are in this later. One of my favourites is one called MIDI Lead. And this is a great example of a dual patch there and the wave sequencing, and you can see it's just switching between these waves. So rather than just getting a static wave, you can hear it switching through them. And in fact, one goes slightly, the tune goes slightly higher on that one as you switch through them. But what I could do is you could go. You can hear that going up a fifth, and I can even go. This sound, this MIDI lead, was used by Tony Banks of Genesis on Fading Lights track off We Can't Dance, used in 1990, and he used the whole synth all over the album and on the subsequent tour as well. And it was also used by Jan Hammer, Enigma, Depeche Mode, and loads of other artists in the early 90s because of these rich pad sounds that you can have. So that's a good example of sort of using the feedback. It sounds like feedback from sort of a guitar type sound, but it's using the wave sequence. There you go, that's a great one of it switching through there. Now, of course, it does have some of the basics in there as well. In fact, what Korg did, we'll talk more about the different versions later in the video, but Korg added some bread and butter type sounds via Caards. So there was a 2 meg sound set in the original one, and then the later versions added 4 meg of RAM. But there were 2 card slots on the original Wavestation, and there were 6 cards available. We've got these cards pre-installed on the VST version, which introduced some of the basic sounds like piano sounds. That was one of the criticisms of the synth at the time, because don't forget, back in those days, I think people wanted a lot of people wanted synths that would do anything, whereas the Wavestation was very much synthesis, and I'm kind of back round with that now. We want things to do specific jobs, but in those days, one of the accusations was the Wavestation didn't include good piano sound, so you could get these cards, get it. So your basic piano sounds like that, and of course some of the more sort of late 80s, early 90s sounds. That's what was introduced with these cards. You also introduces some drum kits, but there are some drum kits included as well. Let's have a quick look at some of those. So in there is a drum kit. Used by Micro Mechanics, another cup of coffee, these drum sounds. They're not the general MIDI layout as well. So we got a couple of kits in there. I think I remember there being an electric one. So we had some drum kits included in there on these cards. We had the dance kit. Which have got that nice sort of late 80s cards on there. So we did get these extra kits on there. So that's a great example of a patch using 5 of the available performance, using 5 available patches with the wave sequencing to get that drum effect sound. So there are some of the standard sounds in there. We've got like guitar sounds, but some of these actually work really well using the vector engine and the wave sequencer. Some of them are a little bit bland. Some of them actually sound quite nice for their age, considering this is a 1990s synth. A bit of slap bass. Not used on side felt, but yeah, some nice basses on there. No resonant basses. There's lots of organ patches included. Some nice bells in there. So let's look at the history. So 1991, Korg launched the Wavestation EX, which was the expanded version of the Wavestation, 4 mega samples in there this time, and like I said, some of those cards like piano and drums that people wanted included. Then in 1991 there was the Wavestation AD, which was a rack mount version of the EX, which also had audio inputs that could process external sounds, so you could use those external sounds within your vectoring and your wave sequencing, which I think a good developer at Korg, who was a guitarist, wanted to be able to use some of those effects, so they brought that one out. In 1992 there was the Wavestation SR, which was a smaller rack version of the AD without the AD inputs. It included many of the expansion cards, but it was difficult to program with a small display. That was the end of the Wavestation story in the 90s, but then in 2004 Korg released this Korg Wavestation virtual machine version of it, and it's still being updated today. It's included in the Korg Collection 4. I bought it back in 2004 and they've kept it updated since though, so I think there's the 64-bit version and so on, so this is using the very latest version of it now. It includes all the cards which you've seen here, improved editing, the resonant filter, you can import and export from it, and it works great as a virtual instrument. There's also an iOS version. And then there's also the new generation in the form of the WaveState. So the WaveState is a new instrument which uses WaveState sequencing 2.0. Many of the samples from the Wavestation are included in the WaveState, and you can use it to create those rhythmic effects as well. Also, the Korg Modwave, the one I have, one of my favourites since, has many of the samples from the Wavestation. It doesn't have wave sequencing, but the motion sequencers can sort of create some of those effects. In fact, I've got a free set of Modwave sounds based on the Wavestation, including some of the ones demonstrated today. But the Wavestation was a great instrument. It used a lot of pads, those evolving sounds. You check out the closing track from We Can't Dance, Genesis, the Fading Lights. It's got the warm strings there and the mini lead sound in there that Tony Banks used, and a slight edit of it as well later in the song. The startup sound on the Mac Quadra 700 and up to the Quadra 800 was created by Jim Reeks on a Wavestation. The original Wavestation cost £1,575 when it was launched in the UK. You can pick it up probably around £500 now. The Korg Collection, if you want to try it, is around £200 currently, and includes this and the Poly 6 and MS-20 and Mono Poly. And there's demo versions available, so you can have a play with it. And the WaveState is now on mod version 2. It's about £699 if you want to have a look at that. And there's also a native version, a VST version of that available, so give that a try as well. So thanks for watching this video. If you've got any questions about the Wavestation, let me know. Sound set available, free download from musictech.minislifestyle.com. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.